One choice changed galactic history forever, and that choice was to save the enemy. The wind blew slowly over the broken battlefield. Smoke still floated in the air like ghosts of the dead. Machines were crushed, ships were burned, and bodies lay scattered, some human, some alien. Jace Carter stood on a high rock, his eyes scanning the ruins below. He was a scavenger, a man who searched dead zones for tech, weapons, and anything worth credits. The war between the Empire and the Predator species had ended weeks ago. The Predators lost. Everyone thought they were extinct. He walked slowly through the debris, his boots crunching on metal and bones. His face was tired, his beard rough, and his eyes sharp like a hawk. He wore an old spacesuit with scratches and patchwork repairs. His small drone hovered above his shoulder, scanning for any valuable signal. Suddenly, the drone beeped. Unusual heat source detected, it said. Jace frowned. Could be a power cell ... or a bomb. He followed the signal into a destroyed Predator warship. The ship's hull was broken in half. Inside, the air was thick with dust. He moved carefully, stepping over bodies and sparks. He shined his light. AROUND. And then he heard it. A sound soft broken like a cry. He froze. The sound came again. A weak, helpless whimper. He raised his weapon and moved deeper. The cry led him to a small corner, behind a broken wall. He moved the metal sheet aside, and what he saw made him stop cold. A baby ... not human ... It had dark gray skin, sharp little claws, and glowing yellow eyes filled with tears. A predator cub. Its body was thin, bruised, and weak. One arm was bleeding. But it was a live ... and it was scared. Jace stared at it for a long second. The Empire had killed millions of these creatures. They were known as monsters, wild, brutal, deadly. But this one was just a child. The cub looked at Jace, but didn't attack. It just cried again, soft, broken, desperate. Jace lowered his gun. "What the hell are you doing here, little one?" he whispered. The cub didn't reply, of course. It just stared at him with big, glowing eyes. Jace looked around. No other life forms, no parents, no guards, nothing. Everyone left you, Jace said slowly. Even your own kind. He turned around, thinking he should leave. The Empire made it clear, no predator should survive. Hiding one meant prison. Maybe worse. But as he walked away, the crying grew louder. It wasn't just noise, it was pain. Real pain. He stopped. He looked back, and something inside him shifted. "This is stupid," he muttered. He walked back to the cub and knelt beside it. Slowly, he took off his gloves and reached out. The cub flinched but didn't run. "I'm not going to hurt you." He picked it up gently. The cub was warm, shaking, and so light. It leaned against his chest like it had no more strength to stand. Then, Jace heard something else. A sound in the sky. Engines. His drone scanned the source. Empire patrol ship approaching. Arrival in 3 minutes. Damn it. Jace cursed. He looked at the cub. "You picked the worst day to survive, kid." Jace rushed back to his ship, carrying the cub close. His ship, the Rust Bucket, was hidden under rocks nearby. As he entered, the onboard AI spoke. "Biological contamination detected." "Override," Jace shouted. "Seal the doors, take off now," engines roared. The patrol ship entered the atmosphere just as the Rust Bucket lifted off. Jace sat in the cockpit, breathing hard. The cub wrapped in a small blanket beside him. He looked down at it. "You're not supposed to be alive," he said softly. The cub looked back, still weak, but eyes calm now. Jace shook his head. "What the hell am I doing?" He opened the storage box, took out a medical kit, and cleaned the cub's wound. It hissed a little but didn't resist. "You're a fighter," Jace said with a small smile. "Gonna need that." He looked out the window. As stars filled the sky. "I don't know what you are," he whispered. But you're with me now. The cub gave a tiny grunt, like it understood. Asterisk. Space stretched endlessly around Jace Carter's ship as it glided through the stars. The cockpit lights blinked softly, casting a blue glow over his tired face. His hands rested on the controls. But his eyes weren't watching space. They were watching the small creature sleeping in the passenger seat beside him. The predator cub was wrapped in a faded blanket, its breathing slow and shaky. Jace, he still couldn't believe what he had done. It had been 3 days since he lifted off from that dead battlefield. 3 days since he picked up the enemy's child. He hadn't told anyone. No calls, no logs sent. He didn't even speak to his AI assistant about it anymore. Something about this felt forbidden. And yet, it didn't feel wrong. He remembered the look in its eyes, not hate, not rage, just fear. The same kind of fear he had seen in human kids during the war. Fear that something bigger, stronger, and crueler would crush them without a second thought. Jace had seen enough of that. He had lived it. Maybe that's why he couldn't walk away. The cub was getting stronger. Every day it moved more, cried less, watched more carefully. Its yellow eyes followed Jace around the room like it was trying to learn. And Jace could feel it. This creature wasn't just surviving. It was observing, understanding. He didn't name it at first. It felt too strange, too personal. But on the 5th day, after the cub tried to repeat one of the words Jace had said, food, and made a sound that was almost like a growl mixed with curiosity, something inside Jace clicked. He looked at the cub and muttered, "You need a name, don't you?" After a long pause, he whispered, "Rovak." "Yeah, that sounds right." The name stuck. Over the next few weeks, Jace taught Rovak basic words. He started using simple cards with pictures: food, ship, Jace, danger. Rovak learned fast, faster than any human child Jace had ever seen. Within a month, Rovak could understand simple commands: sit, eat, come, stop. But it wasn't just intelligence. That grew. Strength did too. One day, while fixing a loose panel near the ship's engine room, the panel slipped, heavy metal about to crush Jace's hand. Before he could react, Rovak leaped across the room, grabbed the edge, and held it up with both claws. Muscles rippled in the young cub's arms. He let out a soft growl, like instinct had kicked in. Jace stared in shock. "You just saved me," he whispered. Rovak only blinked, as if it was nothing. Later that night, Jace sat alone, a bottle in his hand. He stared at the stars outside, the ship humming around him. He had fought in wars. He had lost people. He had seen monsters. But what he saw today didn't feel like a monster. It felt like family. Still, doubt crawled into his mind. What if he was wrong? What if one day Rovak turned on him? What if this was a time bomb, and he was raising it with blind eyes? He recorded a private log. "He's changing, or maybe I'm the one changing. I don't see a beast anymore. I see a boy. A scared, smart, strong boy. But that's dangerous, isn't it? If I forget what he is, the Empire won't. They'll kill us both." No questions asked. Every few days, Jace had to change planets, jump systems, stay off scanners. The Empire patrols had increased. Near the outer colonies, rumors had started. A predator cub survived. A scavenger was hiding it. Whispers. Just whispers. But whispers were enough. Jace knew the Empire. Whispers grow teeth. One night, after landing on a quiet moon to refuel, Jace left Rovak sleeping and walked to the supply post. He wore a hood, kept his head down, bought some food, tools, batteries. As he turned to leave, he heard a voice behind him. "You've been moving a lot lately, Carter." Jace froze. A tall woman stood there, red jacket, long hair tied back, her eyes sharp and calm. She didn't have a weapon drawn, but she didn't need to. Her presence was enough. "I'm just a traveler," Jace said quietly. She smirked. "A traveler with a child-shaped shadow. A shadow that doesn't belong to your kind." Jace's heart pounded. He said nothing. "Don't worry," she added. "Step in closer. I'm not with the Empire. But they're listening. And they're hunting. Be careful what you protect." She walked away before he could speak. Back on the ship, Jace found Rovak awake, sitting quietly near the window, looking at the stars. For the first time, Jace wondered if Rovak understood more than he showed. Maybe even understood the danger. He sat beside him. "Things are changing fast, kid. People are talking. Eyes are watching. But I won't let them take you. Not after everything we've been through." Rovak looked up. He didn't speak. But his hand slowly reached out and rested on Jace's arm. A silent promise. A silent bond. They weren't just man and cub anymore. They were something much more dangerous. They were becoming family. And somewhere, far above the stars, in cold Empire halls, someone whispered, "The child survived." The stars never slept, and neither did the Empire's eyes. High above a burning red planet, a black Empire vessel drifted silently in orbit. Inside its steel walls, reports were being read, whispers were being shared, and questions no one wanted to ask were starting to surface. There were rumors, faint ones at first, of a child, a predator child, alive, and worse, being raised by a human. The idea was laughed at by some. Impossible, they said. The predators were wiped out, every last one of them burned, buried, or erased by order of the Imperial Council. There were no survivors, but the whispers kept returning, like smoke from a fire no one could see. And whispers had power. Far away, on a quiet mining moon named Drenhold, Jace Carter walked through an old scrapyard. Metal towers reached into the sky like skeletons. He moved slowly, eyes sharp, scanning for useful parts. Behind him, with silent steps and sharp curiosity, Rovak followed. The cub had grown taller now, stronger and smarter. His claws were sharper, but he kept them hidden. His eyes glowed less fiercely now, dimmed by calm, or maybe trust. He wore a cloak now, stitched by Jace himself. It wasn't much, just old fabric cut and tied, but it made him look less alien from a distance. To strangers, he might be mistaken. For a young miner, up close, it was clear he wasn't human. Not even close. "Stay close," Jace said quietly. "No sudden moves." Eyes down, Rovak nodded, silent as ever. He had learned not to speak outside. He had learned what a mistake could cost them. But even on this forgotten moon, they weren't truly alone. A man stood watching them from behind a rusted wall. He didn't blink. His eyes scanned the creature beside Jace, narrowed in suspicion, and then widened in understanding. His name was Vel, a traitor, spy, and more importantly, a collector of secrets. And he had just found one worth a fortune. Jace and Rovak returned to their ship, unaware they had been seen. The moment the hatch closed, Rovak let out a deep breath. He had held it for almost 10 minutes. Jace placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did good." Rovak looked up and said softly, eyes down, "Stay close." No sound. Jace smiled. "You're learning fast." That night, Rovak sat alone near the observation window, staring at a star cluster he had never seen before. His reflection stared back, half predator, half shadow. He was growing fast, faster than human children. His mind was expanding too. He could read basic text now. He could fix ship panels, understand star maps, and even mimic voice patterns. But in his heart, there were still questions. He turned to Jace, who was checking supplies. "Why do they hate me?" Jace froze. It wasn't the question that surprised him, it was the way Rovak asked it. Soft, calm, like he already knew the answer, but hoped it wasn't true. Jace sat beside him. "They fear you," he said slowly. "They fear what your kind could do. The war, it broke a lot of things. Some of them never healed. Rovak looked down. But I didn't do anything. No, Jace said, voice tight. You didn't. But sometimes being born with the wrong blood is enough. A heavy silence followed. Outside, a comet passed silently through space. The next day, everything changed. Jace stepped out of the ship to collect fuel canisters left by a local contact. When he returned, the message light on his dashboard blinked red. A transmission had come through. Uncoded. Public. He played it. The voice was smooth. Cold, female. To the scavenger hiding the beast. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Return it, and we'll spare your life. Run, and we'll erase you both. The Empire leaves no loose ends. Jace's jaw clenched. He crushed the canister in his hand. Rovak stepped forward, alert. Who was that? Jace didn't answer. Instead, he moved fast, flipping switches and locking down the ship. We're leaving, now. They lifted off, silent and fast, into the black, but they were no longer just running. They were being hunted. Across several star systems, the message spread. Some believed it, some ignored it. But to those who lived in the cracks between planets, in the shadow markets and war-torn stations, the story meant something else. A predator cub had survived, and a human had saved it. Nera, the red-jacketed bounty hunter who once walked past Jace in the marketplace, watched the message replay with interest. Her boots rested on a table, and her fingers traced the scar near her jaw. She'd seen predators before. She'd fought them. But she also knew the war hadn't told the full truth. Nothing ever did. She stood up, fast and focused. I want to find him, she told her ship AI. Not for the bounty. I want to see this human, and the child he's risking his life for. The hunt had begun, and through dark space lanes and secret channels, the whisper became a warning. People started to say, the Empire lied. One of them lives. And he is not alone. The galaxy didn't care who lived or died. It spun, day and night, cold and distant, watching silently as wars burned, stars collapsed, and choices were made. Jace Carter's ship was moving fast through the outer rim. The Empire was getting louder, hungrier. Their signal beacons now reached even the quietest corners of space, always repeating the same message. The Predator Cub was alive. Any information would be rewarded. Any protection punished. It had been weeks since the first warning arrived. Jace hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time since then. Every station they landed on felt colder. Every passing ship looked suspicious. And Rovak, once small and soft, had now become something else entirely. Taller, stronger, his shoulders wide, arms thick with muscle. The way he moved was different now, graceful, silent, alert. His claws stayed hidden, but Jace could feel the energy behind them. Waiting, watching. They were not just running anymore. They were surviving. One quiet evening, the ship passed near the shattered ring of a dead planet. Dozens of broken asteroids drifted like frozen bones. It was the perfect place to rest, hide, and breathe, at least for a while. Jace brought the ship down inside a large hollowed-out rock. The view outside was just stars and silence. Inside it was quiet enough to hear the hum of his engine cooling down. He opened the supply hatch, set up the oxygen seal, and turned to Rovak. Stretch your legs, kid. We're not going anywhere for a few hours. Rovak stepped out slowly, eyes scanning the rocks. He was cautious now. He had learned that danger didn't always make noise before it arrived. Jace sat back and finally closed his eyes. That was his mistake. It happened fast. Too fast. The ship shook once. Then again, Jace jumped up, grabbed his rifle, and ran toward the hatch. 3 men in black armor were already inside. Pirates. Rough, scarred faces, greedy eyes. Their guns pointed at Jace. One of them grinned wide. You're a hard man to find, Carter. Jace didn't speak. He glanced quickly. Rovak wasn't in sight. Another pirate stepped forward. "Where's the cub? Don't lie." "We know he's with you. The Empire's offering more than money for that thing." Still no answer. A third man stepped forward and smashed the rifle from Jace's hands. Jace swung back, hit the man's jaw, but was tackled instantly. Fists landed on his chest, his face. The world spun. His breath left him, and then silence. A sharp sound cut the air. Like metal tearing through meat. The pirate, on top of Jace, stopped moving. His eyes widened. Then he fell. Behind him stood Rovak, covered in blood. His claws were out. His mouth curled into something between a snarl and a scream. The other two pirates turned too late. Rovak moved like fire. He leaped forward, slashed across the nearest pirate's chest, and spun around, slamming his elbow into the last man's. Skull, bones cracked, bodies dropped. 3 men. Less than 10 seconds. Silence fell again. Jay stood up slowly. Blood dripped down his forehead. He looked at Rovak, and for the first time, he didn't see the cub. He saw a predator, not scared, not confused, just calm. Rovak stood over the bodies, breathing deeply. His chest rose and fell. His claws were still out. Jay stepped forward, carefully. "Rovak." The boy turned. His eyes were bright, alive, not angry, focused. Jace said again, "Rovak, it's okay. It's over." The boy blinked, as if waking from a trance. He looked down at his hands, at the blood, then at Jace. "I didn't mean to enjoy it," Rovak whispered. Jace didn't know what to say. He stepped closer and pulled the boy into a hug, even with the blood, even with the claws. "You did what you had to," Jace said. "They were going to kill us." "But I liked it," Rovak said, his voice shaking now. "That scares me." Jace held him tighter. "You're not a monster." "How do you know?" "Because monsters don't ask that question." They cleaned up the bodies. Jace dumped the pirates into a nearby asteroid field, erasing the scene. The ship lifted off again, leaving the blood behind. But not the weight. That night, Rovak didn't sleep. He stared at his reflection in a metal panel. He kept flexing his fingers, opening and closing his hand like he didn't trust it anymore. Jse watched him from across the room. Heart heavy. He opened the log recorder. Log. Entry. "I saw what he can do. I saw what's inside him. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. He's faster than anything I've ever seen. Stronger than most grown men. But what scares me most is how calm he was." He paused. Maybe this is the day he stopped being a child. He turned off the log. Across the galaxy, news of a pirate crew gone silent reached a backroom on a black station. Nira heard the report. She smiled faintly. "Good," she said. "He's waking up." She leaned forward, opened a new file, and traced her finger across a blinking dot moving through space. "Let's see what you really are, little prince." The chase was no longer just about survival. It was about what Rovak was becoming. The stars looked peaceful from a distance, but Jace Carter had learned better. Peace was a lie told by distance. Up close, every star system hid a scar. Some were ruins of war, others were graves of forgotten civilizations. And some, like the one they had just entered, whispered truths that had been buried on purpose. The system was unmarked on official Empire maps, just floating rocks and radiation warnings. But Jace had heard things in his scavenger days. Tales of a predator. Temple that once stood here, hidden among shattered moons. A place not just of worship, but memory. He didn't know why he was drawn here. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way Rovak had been acting lately, restless, distracted, more silent than usual. Ever since the first kill, something had changed in him. Not just fear or guilt, but a pull. As if something distant was calling to him, quietly, over the void. Rovak didn't say much during the journey. He stood by the ship's viewport, eyes locked on a broken moon that spun in a crooked orbit. It was cracked, cratered, and silent, but he kept staring at it. "There," he said at last. JSCE blinked. "You sure?" Rovak nodded once. They landed at the edge of a jagged cliff, the ship's feet settling into dust that hadn't been touched in decades. As they stepped out, the air was dry, the sky pale with cosmic ash. Jagged stone pillars rose from the ground like broken teeth, and in the middle of them, a structure, part buried under centuries of rock and silence. Rovak walked ahead, faster now. Jace followed, rifle slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning the shadows. The doorway of the structure was half covered, but Rovak pressed his clawed hand to it, and something clicked. The door slid open. Inside, lights flickered on, old, warm, golden. Jace raised his eyebrows. "Still powered?" "After all this time?" Rovak didn't answer. He moved through the halls like he'd been there before, like his bones remembered the place. Even if his mind didn't. At the heart of the temple, they found it, a circular room with smooth walls. Along the walls were carvings, symbols, and what looked like stars. In the center stood a tall black stone, smooth like glass. Rovak stepped closer and placed his hand on it. The stone lit up. And then it spoke. Not with sound, but with memory. Flashes filled Rovak's mind, not dreams, not images, but bloodline. He saw warriors in silver armor with glowing red eyes, his ancestors. He saw cities floating over oceans, beasts larger than ships walking beside predator, children and leaders who spoke to machines with only their minds. The predator people weren't just warriors. They were scholars, builders, protectors of something ancient. And then he saw the betrayal. Empire ambassadors smiling, shaking hands, then poisoning water supplies. Then setting fires, then bombs. He saw the fall. He saw his own parents, a tall warrior woman and a cloaked man, running through fire with a baby in their arms. The man handed the baby to someone and said only one word: "Hide." That baby was him. And then darkness. Rovak fell backward, gasping. Jace caught him just in time. "What happened? What did you see?" Rovak looked up, eyes wide. "I saw them all," he whispered. "They weren't just soldiers. They were something more." He stood slowly, voice shaking. "I'm not just one of them, Jace. I'm one of the last of their bloodline, the last heir." Jace stepped back, stunned. "Your royalty?" "I don't know what I am," Rovak said, "but I know what they did to us." They spent the next hour recording the carvings, the star maps, the names. The Empire had erased this place from history, but it hadn't been completely lost. Not yet. As they left the temple, Jace stared at Rovak differently. This wasn't just a child anymore. This wasn't just a survivor. This was living proof of a buried truth, and the Empire would do anything to make sure that truth never spoke again. Back aboard the ship, Jace started a new log entry. "I've seen many strange things in my life. Ghosts of war, alien ruins, even a talking rock once. But nothing like this. Rovak isn't just a child from the enemy's side. He's the child, the key to something older, deeper. Maybe even a power the Empire couldn't control, so they destroyed it." He paused, "And now he's mine to protect." But even as the ship lifted off, quiet sensors began to blink. The temple had broadcast a signal. Far away, in the dark chambers of an Empire watchtower, red lights flared. A voice spoke in the dark. "The bloodline has awakened." Nira received the signal too. She watched the coded symbols appear on her screen. The temple had lit up like a flare in deep space. And now, the hunt was no longer about fear or fame. It was about blood. Rovak's blood. And blood always called others to it. The signal that woke the galaxy was silent, invisible and ancient, but powerful. When Rovak touched the black stone in the buried temple, something happened. Something that hadn't happened in over a generation. A hidden frequency pulsed across the stars, only heard by those who had been trained to listen. It was not a call. It was not a cry. It was a challenge. And the Empire heard it. They didn't. Waste time. In less than 12 hours, 4 ships launched from a classified orbital base. No names, no markings, only cold gray hulls and darker intentions. Their mission was simple: destroy whatever had activated the forgotten Predator tech. Burn it clean. Leave no trace. Back on Jace's ship, the days felt heavier now. The truth Rovak had discovered in the temple sat between them like a silent wall. They spoke less. They moved carefully. Something had shifted, not between them, but inside of Rovak. He was still the same cub Jace had saved from the ruins, but now he walked differently, watched more, thought before speaking. He wasn't just growing anymore. He was becoming. Jace noticed. One evening, while orbiting a gas planet for repairs, Jace looked at Rovak across the table. "You've barely slept," he said. "I don't feel tired." "That's not a good thing." Rovak looked up. "They're coming. You feel it too, don't you?" Jace wanted to lie, but he couldn't. The quiet hum in his bones, the sudden silence in the coms, the lack of random trader chatter. Something was out there, something big, something watching. He powered up the engines early. By the time the Empire ships dropped out of warp, they were already running, but it wasn't fast enough. A blast struck their left engine. Sparks flew through the cockpit. Lights dimmed. Rovak grabbed the wall as the ship spun, but Jace fought the controls hard. He managed to guide them toward a large asteroid field just beyond the planet's rings. They crash-landed on a narrow, rocky platform, hidden beneath layers of ice and stone. Alarms blared. The ship was damaged. Shields were gone. Jace turned to Rovak. "We don't have much time." Rovak was already at the weapon locker, but he didn't grab a gun. He grabbed the Predator blade they had taken from the temple. It wasn't just a weapon. It was recognition. It hummed when he touched it. Outside, enemy boots hit the ground. Shadows moved between the rocks, silent, armored, ready. Jace peeked through the scanner. 3 teams. Full gear, heavy rifles. He looked at Rovak. "You don't have to fight. We can hide. Wait it out. Try to escape." Rovak stared back, his face calm, his eyes steady. "They're not here for me anymore, Jace." He stepped forward. "They're here for what I might become." And with that, he stepped out into the cold, dark. Jace cursed under his breath and followed. The Empire soldiers moved quickly, spreading out to surround the crash site. But they didn't expect what came next. From the shadows, Rovak moved like smoke, fast, quiet, precise. One soldier went down before he could speak. Another turned. Too slow. His weapon pulled from his hands and crushed. The third managed to fire a shot. It missed. Rovak didn't. Jace watched from a distance, covering, with short blasts from behind a rock. He saw Rovak fight not like a beast, but like a blade. Controlled, focused. He didn't kill for fun. He killed because they were killers. But then something unexpected happened. A voice called out, "Hold your fire. Cease attack." A figure stepped into view, tall, in a crimson coat. Nyra. The bounty hunter. Jace raised his rifle. "You followed us." She held up her hands. "I'm not here to kill anyone." Rovak stepped forward, claws out, blood on his face. Nyra looked at him. Calmly, "You've grown," she said. "I've been watching your path for a long time. Why?" Rovak asked. "Because you're not the last," she said. "And you're not alone." Rovak blinked. Jace lowered his weapon, slowly. "What do you mean?" Nyra removed one of her gloves. Her hand, her fingers, weren't fully human. She was half predator. "Your people," she said, "were not destroyed. They were scattered, hunted, hidden, and some of us were born between 2 worlds." She looked at Rovak. "You're the signal they've been waiting for. If you live, they rise." Jace looked at Rovak. "So what now?" Nira smiled faintly. Now? Now you decide what kind of king you want to be. The remaining Empire soldiers tried to regroup, but the damage was done. Their teams were broken. Their command shaken. Before they could retreat, Rovak stepped forward, blade in hand, but instead of striking, he threw the blade down at their feet. Tell them, he said. Tell the Empire their silence is broken. The soldiers ran. The asteroid echoed with cold wind once more. Later that night, inside the broken ship, Jace sat beside Rovak. You could have killed them all. Rovak stared into the dark. I'm not here to be what they expect. He looked at Jace. I'm here to remind them what they tried to forget. They say some things are too dangerous to remember, and some stories too powerful to speak out loud. But even in the coldest corners of the galaxy, where stars blink like dying eyes and space stations float like tombstones, a whisper still lives. A whisper about a human and a predator child. A whisper about a bond that should have never existed, and a legacy the Empire could not erase. It had been 3 months since the battle in the asteroid field. 3 months since Rovak faced down the Empire's best and walked away alive. His name was never printed in the public feeds. No news agency spoke it, but the silence was loud. Too loud. The kind that hides fear. Jace and Rovak didn't stop running, they just ran smarter. From one broken moon to the next. From war-torn ports to outlaw planets, they weren't hiding now. They were searching for others. And they found them, one by one, across ruined cities, buried vaults, and shattered archives. Rovak located more pieces of his kind, not just living predators, but fragments of his culture, his history, symbols, tools, tech that responded only to bloodlines like his. And slowly, carefully, he began to rebuild what was once broken. Some joined him, others only watched, but all of them listened. Rovak had changed. He was no longer a boy learning words. He was a leader now, silent when needed, fierce when provoked. His presence alone was enough to stop a room. Even humans began to take notice. Smugglers, rebels, ex-soldiers. Some feared him. Some followed him. One night, inside the cold remains of a forgotten science station, Jace stood watching Rovak as he spoke to a small group of both predator hybrids and humans. They sat around an old war table, maps spread across dusty glass, planning something Jace never thought he'd see again. Hope. Not for revenge, for change. Jace leaned against the wall, arms crossed, trying to stay quiet. Nira appeared beside him, sipping from a steaming tin mug. You still don't see it, do you? See what? He's not your shadow anymore, she said. He's becoming your legacy. Jace didn't answer, because deep down, he knew she was right. Later that same week, Rovak did something no one expected. He spoke. Not in a whisper, not in secret, but to the entire outer ring. He hijacked an open network used by traders and scavengers, the people who lived beyond the Empire's strict control. His voice came through quiet, calm, and clear. If you hear this, know this truth. I am Rovak. I am predator by blood. Raised by a human, hunted by the Empire. I should not exist, but I do. And I am not the only one. He paused, letting silence carry his words deeper than any shout. You were told my kind are monsters. That we destroy, that we kill without reason, that we are the enemy. But the real enemy is fear. The kind of fear that makes empires burn history and call it peace. More silence. Louder now. I am not here to take revenge. I am not here to start a war, but I will not hide. Not anymore. If you believe your blood defines your worth, then you are still a slave to the Empire's lies. But if you believe truth belongs to everyone, then find me. We will rebuild. The message lasted less than 2 minutes, but it echoed for weeks. Stations went dark after replaying it. Ships were searched. Traders arrested. The Empire called it terrorist propaganda. But the people called it something else. Truth.rovak didn't disappear after the broadcast. He just went deeper. Into the places maps won't show. Into shadows where rebels train, where secrets are kept in songs instead of databases. He became a symbol, not of war, but of resistance. Even now it is said that he travels with a human still, the same man who chose to save him when everyone else would have left him to die. J.C.E. Carter. Some say Jace died years ago, protecting Rovak from an ambush. Others say he still walks beside him, quiet and proud, carrying a rifle and a promise to protect the boy he once found crying in the ruins of a dead battlefield. And somewhere, deep in the Empire's vaults, Rovak's name is still marked in red, classified, forbiddens, erased from all public memory. But it doesn't matter, because history isn't always written in books. Sometimes it's written in whispers. And even now, the Empire still whispers about him, about the child who survived, the predator who chose not to become a monster, the heir who woke an empire's guilt, and the human who raised him, not as a weapon, not as a beast, but as a son.